Welcome to Indiana University Cinema's virtual screening room. My name is Jessica Davis Tagg, and I'm the Assistant Director of Events, Facilities, and Guest Services. We are delighted that you're joining us here tonight for the screening of The Return of Draw Egan. We hope you and your loved ones are staying happy and well. We miss seeing all of you in IU Cinema's lobby, but look forward to seeing you again once we are safely able. The movie tonight premiered in 1916, but the score you're about to hear, paired with it, was written especially for IU Cinema and premiered February 2016. We are delighted to be able to present it again tonight for you. The music you will hear was commissioned by IU Cinema as part of the John Vickers Scoring Award. This annual award, endowed by the Honorable P.A. Mack, Jr., is given to a student from the Composition Department in the Jacobs School of Music. The Return of Draw Egan was the inaugural film for the John Vickers Scoring Award, and in 2015, a committee with representatives from the Media School, Jacobs School of Music, and IU Cinema awarded this honor to Ari Fisher, who joins us here tonight.
Hi, thank you, Jessica. The recording you will be hearing tonight is the 2016 live premiere performance with an orchestra consisting of Jacobs School of Music students, conducted by Joe Stepik. I'd like to thank everyone at the IU Cinema, Jacobs School of Music, John Vickers, and all of the students and faculty involved to make this all possible. I'm looking forward to answering questions later, and I hope you all enjoy this evening's experience. Back to you, Jessica.
And we're glad Ari's here with us as well. Thank you, Ari. Ari will be joining me along with Professor Larry Groupé, and I should mention that Larry is the composer of the IU Cinema fanfare you just heard. So Ari and Larry and I will be having a conversation after the film, and then a Q&A, which will begin at approximately 8:15 p.m. There will be a countdown on your screen once the introduction ends, so you'll know when to return. At this time, please access the link provided for our virtual screening room to view The Return of Draw Egan. The link can also be found on the slide, which will appear in a moment. I'll see you back here in a bit, and we hope you enjoy the film. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed The Return of Draw Egan and are full of questions for composer Ari Fisher. I'd like to welcome Ari back to IU Cinema's virtual screening room, along with Professor Larry Groupé, who is the composition professor of scoring for visual media and who has mentored the winners of the John Vickers Scoring Award since he arrived at Indiana University in 2016. Welcome, Larry and Ari.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The three of us are going to have a short discussion, and then we'll open it up to audience questions. To ask a question at any time, click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and type in the question, and we'll get to as many as we can. So Ari and Larry, Ari is joining us from the LA area, and Larry is joining us from north of San Diego. But for those of you who may have missed the intro, this is part of the John Vickers Scoring Award, and I'd like to ask a couple questions about that to start out with. So Larry, you've been a part of the John Vickers Scoring Award for several years. Could you give us an overview of the process from a jury member and faculty member's perspective?
Yes, the way that this award is handled every year is a 5-minute clip is put together of the next film that we want to do, and that goes out to the composers at the Jacobs School. And those that are interested, we usually have quite a few people that are interested, will score this 5-minute excerpt. And then, as Jessica said at the beginning, there's a panel of, maybe 8 to 10 people from the Media School, from the Jacobs School, from cinema. So it's a collective body that looks at all of these excerpts, and then we rank them, and basically whoever had the top number out of that group is how that next composer is chosen. So you know, Ari, not only, first of all, Ari, fantastic score, just wonderful, and I'm very happy that you had the chance to do that. And I believe you are the inaugural composer of the Vickers Award. Is that correct, Jess?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. I missed Ari by nanoseconds by the time I got to IU. So now that I'm shepherding the composers through this process, once this person is selected, the first things that we do now together is that it's called spotting the picture. We'll watch the movie and we'll make decisions on where the music should be, where it should be more restful, things like that, and come up with all kinds of a map, basically, is what I usually suggest to the students, because it's such a long full-length feature film that it's really nice to have a map so you know where your destinations are going to be along the way that are important to you, that you feel I need to have a big payoff here, I need to lay low here, and that really helps on an emotional level to get your emotional map put together. So I don't mean to run on with your question, Jessica, but that's part of how we start.
Yeah, that's great. And Ari, you were in a unique circumstance. How did you even start writing a score for the movie? Do you start with a scene? You start from the beginning? You start with some themes? I'm sure it's overwhelming to begin with.
Oh man, it's like a million things going on in my brain. Yes, it's a lot of overwhelming feelings. If I recall correctly, what I did first for this film is I did my best in the short amount of time that I had to get my competition entry ready, was familiarize myself with the film as much as possible, and understand who Draw Egan is and what's going on exactly in this scene. The 5-minute clip that I got to score was, I'm not sure if you all remember the title card, but it says, the new marshal goes to work, and he deals with a few barflies and asserts his dominance over them. And that's followed by Poppy. So in that, I wanted to already kind of have an idea of what the theme for Draw Egan would be. And in that scene specifically, I wanted to show his darker side. And if you get a chance to listen to the score closely, you'll notice that the opening fanfare, Draw Egan's theme, is also kind of a similar motive to the, let's say, bad guy theme. This bum 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 kind of inverted version of Draw Egan, showing that he came from somewhere bad and became good, someone heroic. So yes, like getting to know these characters from and their journey was one of the most important things, so I could understand what kind of theme I could make for them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I had not noticed that inversion of the bad guys theme from Draw Egan. That's great. So a question for both of you. How does writing for a silent film differ from writing for a film with sound?
Oh man. Well, for one, you don't have to battle with dialogue when you're working for a silent film. When you're working with a film with sound, you got to make room for that, for everything to kind of shine on its own, and let the score be more of a carpet to support the film. And while I believe with a silent film, you're also kind of giving the voice to the actors that they don't have, and helping enhance that. The kind of way where you would like almost understand what's going on in the movie without even seeing it.
Larry, anything to add?
Yeah, it's huge difference if you're working with a silent picture. I did actually a more modern silent movie that had sound in it, so a car would drive by and footsteps and all that, but it didn't have any dialogue whatsoever, which is still a massive difference because the music can really make bigger statements that way. It was described to me once that the way movies are put together, modern movies, is like a Bob Ross painting. Dialogue is king, so it's the big mountain that he first paints. Then there's the trees and their happy friend trees. That is the sound effects. And then the little tiny stream that you see a corner of at the bottom of the painting, that's the musical score. So you have to fit into this very compressed, think of this actually as a loudspeaker when you're listening on through a speaker. All of that real estate in sound is in a movie nowadays. So you're competing, not competing, but you need to mesh with dialogue, sound effects. If the car is going to blow up, you know they're not, if you do a big musical chord, you're not going to hear it because the explosion effect will be the most dominant. So you're always going back and forth with where you are within the real estate of the sonic part of a modern filmmaking. In the silent movie, it's a wonderful time for you to have grand themes and things that can really linger and get extraordinarily subtle, because there's nothing in the way of the storytelling that Ari just did, and he has huge influence over what happens there. And I just want to say to Ari quickly that I really liked how you moved around between, let's say, a classic Western score, especially like the love theme, and then some more modern approaches in action and tension. So I really was happy that you pulled yourself out of 1916 and you know, use other modern scoring techniques, because it is storytelling. It's not like we have to do an era based score. It's just not necessary. The way it was probably initially done with piano and potentially organ, you know, their approaches would be completely, utterly different than what Ari did. He's really painting, and he has complete control over a very big landscape.
So that's a silent film versus a sound film. Now I want to ask about a complete film versus a film that's in progress, where you might still have some changes to be dealt with, or you might even have some input. How does that compositional process differ?
Well, first of all, I mean, like you'll be collaborating with your director and your producer, and it can be things that happen overnight where you have like this cue set for a scene, and then next day, oh, they cut it differently, so you have to work around that. It's very much alive throughout the entire process, and collaboration is really truly the key. It's like the underlying word. It's you're making a film with people, and not saying, oh, I'm putting my music in a film. It's about the film and not about, you know, the music with it so much. But even with silent films, even as old as 1916, they can change really quickly. For instance, when this score went to perform in the Pordenone Silent Film Festival, maybe 2 weeks before I was at in Italy, I found out that it was a completely different cut with new material, and scenes even swapped, because they're reconstructing this for Library of Congress, and title cards were shorter. Everything was different, so I had to actually rewrite about 50 minutes of music in 2 weeks alone, and without any team with me.
Wow.
It was exhilarating, to say the least. I mean, I had to go through a score. I have it right here. You see, like 2 measures will be like ripped out and then kind of condensed here, and then maybe not. Who knows? You know, it's a lot of. It was very, felt like Frankenstein, but it was a beautiful monster in the end.
Which version of the film, and I guess as well, which score do you like? The original from here that we just saw, or the one that you had to put together quickly?
I would actually like to say that I love both equally.
Wow.
Okay. They work wonderfully for their respective versions.
Mm-hmm.
So one more question.
It's like choosing a favorite child. You can't do it.
One more question, and then we'll take it to the audience, see what the audience has to ask. I'm interested, Ari, if you could sit William S. Hart down and ask him, as the director of this movie, any questions you possibly could. Is there anything you would ask him? Are there any scenes that were particularly difficult to compose for that you would like to say, like, what were you doing here?
Ooh, I would probably ask him about certain pacings in towards kind of the climax of the film, the pre-climax, so to speak, where Draw Egan's past comes up to him. And there's a lot of cutting in between a love scene and then some kind of scheming and things like that. Very interesting choice of pacing, and I'd like to ask what he would like musically to go along with that. That was probably my.
I was keenly aware of that sequence, Ari, because you had a dilemma there, a choice. They're out on horseback, and they're out on Palomar Mountain having their romantic date, and then there's a cut back to the bar and action with a fiddler and people jumping around. So it's very, very active. Then back again to the romantic mountainside. And you chose is what we call playing through a scene. So he's already involved with his romantic theme, and he lets it play. So that's what we call it, playing through. He plays through this relatively short smash cut back to the saloon, and then we're back to the romantic side. So it fits as bookends. It's just that he doesn't suddenly jerk us into something that addresses the action, which I totally agree with, by the way. That would almost be falling into the Mickey Mousing camp, and we don't want to do that in a long form movie like this. So I very much applaud that choice, and that is the thing to do, is to play through.
Thank you.
So we'll take it to the audience. The first question is for Ari. How did you research this film? Did you watch it with other scores? Watch other films from the time? How did you do it?
Well, when I researched the film, before I got my DVD of all of Draw Egan, I looked on YouTube and found several different videos of the Return of Draw Egan, and that certainly helped me in preparing and studying for the film. And then once I got the DVD, I was just kind of I noticed different cuts, different slight differences between the ones uploaded and the DVD I was given. And at that point, I was like, all right, I got to stick to this. I don't want to get confused. And so I kind of didn't really want to look too much as to what other stock music was used for the film. But I did have a lot of influences in my score from a lot of the music that I love, and like the silver and golden age of Hollywood, the Korngold, Williams, you name it. It's all the really schmaltzy stuff. I love it. It's ooey gooey. Oh, and my Russian favorites, and kind of drawing from that to express certain attitudes and affects.
Daniel asks, do you sketch out the themes and melodic contour beforehand and make notes where to use specific styles and gestures, like in particular places in the film?
When I was sketching this, I did have a Moleskine music notebook where I would jot down an idea for a character, even entire scenes, just written melodically, and kind of knowing in the back of my head what the rest of the orchestra was doing. And Arizona Joe, I remember clearly writing down Arizona Joe's theme, this weird, almost 12-tone, super chromatic, just kind of awkward, like he is as a character. I would sketch those things out and then kind of lay them in their respective places. And a lot of the times, especially for the first 15 minutes, I did my best to kind of just through compose and just let the music write itself until I got to a very specific hit point that I wanted. And so the music would stand on its own as well.
So for both of you, how do you decide which instrument to use for different characters if you're using particular instruments or themes to represent characters?
I'm sorry?
So someone else has asked, how do you decide which theme or instrument do you use for each character if you're going to do that?
Well, that's a good question. I believe certain instruments, given the right moment, can have definitely some kind of characteristics to them. English horn, when used kind of in its mid to low register, gives us very sinister sound, kind of, but can also be used as a very sad instrument or bittersweet. So I definitely take into account how these instruments sound and their characteristics when I'm orchestrating or giving a theme or a moment to the score. And like I said earlier, it's really about studying the person and their journey throughout the score to come up with their theme and maybe see how that theme can develop or be used elsewhere throughout the score.
Exactly. In my case, I spend time with, like, as you just described, with the characters to decide, to come up with what their theme might be. And I don't often think of the instruments immediately. I want to come up with the thematic material that is that person's theme. And
Yeah.
then, because of through the story arc of the character, it might be played with strings in the beginning, and then suddenly, if it's a bravado situation, it might be a brass chorale playing the same theme, but in this, where we are in the story, kind of calls for that instrumentation. So I think themes need to be flexible enough where they don't always have to be a theme for flute. Sometimes if the character never changes, then you're done. But usually you morph these things through the value of orchestration, to get development out of the theme. It can go longer. It suddenly has a B side that you didn't have until halfway through. So that actually is what Ari's saying. I'm just saying that the instrumentation is not usually the very first decision we make. It's more, what are the notes, or the rhythm maybe is where the character is. So those kind of real bottom line DNA building blocks of the score are usually created first, and then they're adorned through Ari's brilliance of orchestration accordingly.
Fantastic. And I'm actually going to continue going on this. I'm going to take a question from Jolene and Bill, who want to know about the compositional difficulties of having to have different musical styles to have different dramatic events. Is that a challenge to kind of switch ideas like that?
To be able to go into different styles always has to do with your knowledge of different repertoire, and the more repertoire that you're exposed to, or just music in general, the more you have at your disposal to kind of emulate, so to speak, or draw upon, even if it's just little things about it. For instance, there's I would call it upon Rachmaninoff or Korngold to get these love themes, these sweeping love themes going, and Prokofiev to get the ultimate sarcasm in terms of harmonic language and orchestration. So I think that, I hope that answers the question.
I think so. Larry, do you have anything to add?
No, I actually have a question, if I may. And that has to do with synchronization to picture, because I know how these projects go. So you're not working with click or streamers.
That's correct.
So your conductor, of course, I'm assuming studies this to know, just constantly and just gets a feeling of it, because a lot of the sync was very good. Also, some sync doesn't necessarily matter because it's more about the emotional content as we're passing by, but certain things are important. So I was curious, how did you aid in the synchronization with certain meters before? Did you use fermata to hold and get ready? So how did you address synchronization?
Could I actually have Larry have you define a couple of terms there?
Sure.
You talked about clickers and streamers.
Yeah. Okay. In modern scoring, of course, we use click tracks that drive along our tempo, so everything is absolutely perfect to picture. It just never misses. You can also use these gliding streamers that go across the picture that the conductor only happens to see, so he knows when an event or an edit or a car bomb is going to happen, so they can actually just go zing right with that streamer. So those are the two most common ways, and which are the ways we are doing the Vickers Award now, by the way. So it took us 3 years to get there, but we now have those synchronization techniques available, but Ari did not.
Yeah, so Ari, how'd you do it?
Throughout the score, there are a bunch of visual cues, and specified to the beat of where they will land. Since there were no streamers, certain things I counted out specifically. Even fermatas were written out. A lot of them were written out. For instance, right here, I have what could have easily been a fermata, but it goes on for 3 measures, and like the slightest visual cue will be what the conductor has. Maybe someone is about to shake someone's hand, and that's all they get.
Do you put that in the score, Ari, or does the conductor decide, I need to know when that is? Oh, they're reaching across to shake a hand. So who makes those notes?
I made several of those notes, several upon several, for the score. And after the premiere, or rather working with Joe Stepek, the conductor, who did a fantastic job, he went even further and found several other cues that he could use as visual cues to know when to find the downbeat of the next measure, when something's kind of suspended in a held note that has this immediate tempo change. And so I combine those notes together to make a new score after the fact.
Right.
But yeah, it's never enough information.
So I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then I have a question for each of you to wrap things up. Barbara asks, how long did it take you to complete the version of this score for the John Vickers Scoring Award? And then how many rehearsals did you get with the musicians before the premiere?
Oh man, I'd say, I went a little bit over my deadline. It was several months that I worked on this, but I couldn't really tell you the hours. I never logged it, but it was
less than a year, but close to it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Less than a year. I would say a lot of time went into it, and it kind of bled into the next school year. But it was.
And how many rehearsals did you get?
Oh, how many rehearsals? I think 2-ish.
Oh gosh.
I 2 or 3, counting the dress rehearsal, I think.
A testament to the quality of the musicians at Jacobs, for sure.
This is not an easy score. The piano part is a concerto on its own.
All right, so last question from the audience, and then I'll have a question to wrap things up. Ari, what are you working on now? And how did this opportunity with scoring Draw Egan help you with future compositions and your career?
Wow. Well, right now I'm in Los Angeles. I'm working currently as an orchestrator for Jane McNeely, a singer-songwriter, helping her with her bring her musical to life. I'm also working on other films with Riley Dismore, and that's something I could talk about. You know, just the fact that the film score award got like my name out there, so to speak, on campus, and there are a lot of aspiring directors and filmmakers at IU, and I got to work with a few of them, and they're all wonderful, and because of that, you know, I've made some really great relationships and a few great films with them, and I have a feeling that that's going to be kind of a marriage that will happen later on in all of our careers. So the exposure led me to new partnerships that are very important for a film composer's career, and not many people can say they scored a feature-length film at that age. It's a very wonderful experience and opportunity that I can't think of any other school that would give such an awesome opportunity.
Well, thank you for that. Looking to the future, Return of Draw Egan was the first John Vickers Scoring Award project, with Body and Soul, The Strong Man, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde following. The 2021 award, the movie will be Grass, A Nation's Battle for Life. It was given last year. The score is currently in progress by Patrick Holcomb. And we're working with distributors to find a title for the 2022 Scoring Award and hope to announce that title soon. So, Larry, can you give us any updates about the 2021 John Vickers Scoring Award and some insights on its progress?
No. No, I've been communicating with Patrick recently since the official end of the semester, you know, using the summer as our start point is why. But yes, we're about to have a spotting session on the movie. We'll just do that by Zoom or Skype or something, just the two of us. But that's, as I said in the beginning, it's the same thing. My recommendation to the composer is to make an emotional map of the film. Don't think about the music yet. Decide where the big moments are, where the grand themes and other sub themes might potentially be, not that those can't be changed. And that kind of really helps wrap your head around the movie a little bit. We just talk about it dramatically. We do not talk about music, very little of it. So that's how it usually begins. And I also recommend to the composer that once they have that and they've looked at the film maybe 3 times, so they've got a sense of the characters and what's going to be happening, is that they actually turn the movie off and write music that emotionally connects you to what you think these characters are. Do not write it to the picture while you're working. You can do that later. That's what I always do. I just turn my back away and I write with a pencil and paper, frankly, emotional music that I think fits this character. And then I bring it back and then I play it and see if I agree with it. If I do, then I can take it a little more seriously and refine it. Fantastic. So that's where we're at. We're at the mapping stage.
The mapping stage, which is, I'm sure, plenty complicated and difficult. Huge. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Ari, what advice would you have for any future John Vickers Scoring Award recipients?
Don't procrastinate. Start as early as you can. I cannot stress that enough. In your career as a film composer, this is like the most time you'll ever get. This is a luxury, so use it.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
All right, with that, I want to thank Ari and Larry for being a part of this conversation. For those of you excited about the film and hoping to share it with others, The link will be live until the end of this weekend, and you'll have the opportunity to revisit both Mr. Egan and Ari's score. I'd also like to give an enormous thank you to the entire IU Cinema team for week after week putting on these virtual events, which are quite a production. So thank you to John, Brittany, Barbara, Seth, Alyssa, Elizabeth, Michaela, Kyle, Carla, Ava, Will, Gabe, Peyton, Mary, and Piyush. We encourage you to check out IU Cinema's virtual screening room for more of our curated films, including Pahokee and the New York International Children's Film Festival Kid Flicks programs. Next week, on Thursday, May 28th at 7 p.m., we hope you'll return for Someone, Somewhere, with a conversation following the screening between IU Cinema founding director John Vickers and IU Chancellor's Professor Emeritus James Naramore. Thank you all again for joining us. Please stay happy, stay hopeful, and stay well. Have a great night.